On November 13th, 2020, I had a catch-up and follow-up with Mihkel Kaup and Scott Henderson of the late Logan's Tavern of the Damned. I saved the interview for this Fun Drive show, March 17th, 2021.
We're just going to step out for just like 2 seconds because we're going to smoke some weed.
We need to ingest some controlled substances, like coffee.
Yeah, like coffee.
Okay, I love you both. Yeah, you do it. It's all good.
Come with us. You can actually come with us. So.
Yeah, that's fine. God. Oh, it's so
there you go.
Oh, wow. I'm glad to see.
Jesus.
Is it as windy for you guys out there as it is out here in Gordon Head?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty windy.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Power's still on.
As we all know, COVID-19 has had its impacts on everyone and thing, including music venues. And yes, Logan's too has fallen victim to this crisis. However, with the end of Logan's, there is more than a bar, a venue, or a brunch spot that Victoria is losing. Logan's was a social hub that was a safe space welcome to all. Logan's was a space of authenticity and family. Mihkel Kaup, musician, artist, and longtime booking agent of Logan's, and Scott Henderson, musician, artist, and sound engineer, have seen Logan's through many incarnations, and as a result, have become figureheads of the Tavern of the Damned.
At the beginning, it was the Wild Wild West. I mean, there's my favorite story is that I went to Chris Logan one day and I said, "Hey, my friend Eugene Chadbourne's coming to town. Can I do a gig on a Wednesday night and guarantee him $500?" And Chris went, "Sure." And I mean, those days are over. And the funny thing was, we didn't really lose any money on that gig.
Well, there are different eras of Logan's.
Yeah, certainly are.
You can really pick apart this stuff, and it's it takes a long time to do it all.
You could really divide it easily into 3 distinct
If you
eras.
think, well, no, because you think about eras based upon like what are we basing the eras upon? Because there's just the staff alone would count for different periods, right?
For brevity's sake.
The bands
simplicity, I have the John Logan era, the Chris Logan era, and the Stuart and Denise Logan era.
But Chris Logan, it overlaps both those eras. And the stages and the type of Chris Logan we're dealing with, right? Well, the type of John Logan there was in his era. You can divide that into the early days of John.
Then you'd end up with about 12 eras of Logan.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to simplify it it's complicated, but it can be done. It's just it's
effort.
There's a lot of effort to it.
Well, writing a book. You are representing, I think, as a point for musical absorption and musical enjoyment, there's going to naturally be an era-based change that takes place simply because there's different sounds associated with that and different artists. And then of course the staff are going to be a reflection of that. So it is really neat because they're like time capsules of really key points of musical creation in Victoria. And I would say at large, because there's shared vibes, you know what I mean, across the world, right? So I think it is really, I think as I'm sure you both have your own way of saying it and your own experience, because mine's different. I'm just a patron that, came in and had a few weird, shitty little shows here and there. But I
mean, we went from the, it's, I guess the easiest, I mean, I don't know, because you can think, okay, there's the pre-social media era as well, right? And, that's kind of just a big thing in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way that, Logan's would have survived with social media in those early days, right? In the John Logan era specifically,
There's no way it would have survived?
There's no way we would have survived social media.
How come?
Through that. We can't. I cannot talk about it. These are the things, like we're going to be on social media. I can't really talk about it.
Okay, so I know what you mean. I see what you mean.
There's lots of things. There's stuff to do with.
There's the unsaid,
skull fucking is first of all like the one word I can put out there. It covers a lot of ground, and
So
and that's about all I can say.
Okay, let's just leave it at behavior unbecoming, whatever.
I mean, you can refer that to anything,
I was thinking social media didn't actually have that much impact.
The parts where the pirates just got on the boat, there's that part. Where we just the boat's out there, pirates jump on the boat, and we have different skippers come in and out, get thrown overboard, go insane or die, and then it's the crew's left trying to steer this thing, and and then the boat's on fire. It's like we're just trying to.
And the captain says, "Let's all get drunk
and let's keep having a party every night. We're gonna keep the party going, and then the ship sinks, and then that's what's happened now, right?
Logan's is a pirate ship. Logan's is a pirate ship. I think that right there is a beautiful analogy, Michael. You just best analogy.
Well, sort of. It's what it really is sort of like the military ship, or like you could a company ship, that has been run by a company that part of their crew is a bit of a mutineer, I suppose. When it comes to owning the ship itself, and it's the pirates jumped aboard, right? When you really look at it, maybe two of them. Think
I
about
say
John
that's better.
The mutineers against the company, man.
I say mutineer pirate-like ship is far better than the Terror, where everyone slowly lost their mind from lead poisoning from tin cans and began to eat each other up in the the tundra. So that is not the boat that was Logan's, thankfully, because that would have looked a lot different. And
not to say that there weren't any of those tin cans on board either.
Yeah, well,
bumping left over from the past, right? I love that analogy a lot. I do. I think that's going to play a big role in that, if that's all in this whole show and conversation, if that's all right. I want to get a background from both of you on how Logan's began for you and how you got pulled into, I mean that in the most loving terms, but pulled into or joined the, this pirate ship party, and how that played out for you guys. So, yeah.
Oh, well, okay, I'll start. Because I mean, I've talked about this a lot, so I can just get it right in bullet points kind of thing, right? And so, I move into the neighborhood to a friend's house. At the end of a relationship, I move onto a school bus. I go out for a beer at the local place that just happens to be Logan's. They happen to have the beer I like on tap. And I just liked the vibe. It was the closest place to go. And then it was like, wow, there's music here. And I was like, right on. And then, I was in there and became friends with the staff. And
now, was it Logan's then?
It was Thursdays.
Now, before the Logan showed up, did they actually book music?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because
I don't know.
Strong claims he played there before it was Logan.
Oh, maybe.
So
I really don't know.
So I've been meaning to ask.
Know that.
Anyway,
I don't
sorry
have
for interrupting.
Anyway, yeah, and I started helping out around the bar. I helped when they moved the stage. What's that?
Were you paid or were you just volunteering?
Oh yeah, I was getting paid. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I was like devoted.
Yeah, for stuff like rebuilding the stage and into one of the corner. It's moved a couple of times now because it started out in the front window. Then it was like where the pool tables are, and then there used to be pool tables in the back with dartboards, and so then that room ended up being anyway. There's all these stages. I was helping around, and I, there was an incident happened, and they needed. When I became officially, I don't know. I mean, there's so much that happened, so. I don't know. I don't have time for all those stories right now. Anyway, I got in there. Eventually, I got into the booking by working there, and
basically,
was managing. And
Chris was doing most of the booking, but you kind of demonstrated that you could do it better.
Well, Sarah came in. She had whatever was happening. She was doing it, sort of holding the slack for Chris, and then she was sort of the booking face. And when she left, and then there was that gap, and I was like, hey, I'll do booking. And Chris said, you really? And I was like, yeah.
Well, Chris was also running the bar, which was keeping him pretty busy. Well, and booking a bar is a headache. You get millions of phone calls, and I mean,
at first I was like, okay, the booking. I'm sitting in an office upstairs with Chris and Darren, and he's drinking pretty heavily, and like we're passing. He's like, "Here, you want a shot in the middle of the day or whatever?"
Chris, yeah.
I'm like, okay, and I'm sitting at this computer thinking, like, I thought booking was a whole different thing. It was all sort of like official because I had a desk, and then after a while, I was like, you know what, this is stupid. So I was like, I can do this from anywhere, right? Like, and I was like, I'm not going to go into an office for a certain amount of hours. And anyway, yeah, it's a long relationship,
But you've spent so many years connected doing this booking, and I don't know, I just when I think of the amount of people that you would be in contact with, and really in reality booking shapes the clientele in many ways, and the atmosphere of Logan's, because
it's
it's not about my music tastes, right? Because if it was about my music tastes, I mean, it would only, but that's not the thing. The thing is not to have, what, first of all, everybody else is doing. And, you have some of that, concentrate on local acts, mostly original material. I mean, we'd have a few tribute acts here and there, but it's really just trying to not do the same thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of bars get to know, okay, Logan's has changed so much from the beginning to now too. It's like there were more venues, and you were competing with other venues and thinking, oh man, those guys are busy. Why are those bands playing over there? They should be playing at our place, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was a bit more competition, wasn't there?
Well, there was Steamers, there was Central Bar and Grill, there was Lucky, there was there were all these, like, there was some of these event center things, like
lots of hall shows.
There was
White Eagle hall shows.
A lot more as far as venues go. So that affects things too, right? But the main thing is like being really honed in on people that are true to their creative process, whatever that looks like, right? But that's really the guts to it, right? It's like, show me your art, like show me your passion for that. And that's what we really, when it comes down to it, really enthused by, right? So
that's really good.
Now, it should be said here that it didn't hurt that, as far as commercially, this was a good idea too, because these people came fairly cheap, and this was a place that couldn't afford expensive bands. It just wasn't financially feasible. I mean, it couldn't on a regular basis. Not on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, well, it could. It's just we needed to make sure that guarantees were
exactly
met, right. So as long as we could make the guarantee and charge enough at the door, it works. Not to say that there weren't some flops over the years.
Yeah.
Oh, I got low battery.
No.
There we go. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, good.
My low battery lasts a while. So
But I mean, the bottom line was we couldn't really be a top 40 bar, because top 40 bars pay out a lot of money to the bands. And on a Thursday night,
early we paid a lot though. We used to pay out a lot, and eventually it was like that got tightened up, and you could do less and less over time.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to point out. Is that at the beginning it was the wild, wild west. I mean, there's my favorite story is that I went to Chris Logan one day and I said, hey, my friend Eugene Chadbourne's coming to town. Can I do a gig on a Wednesday night and guarantee him $500? And Chris went, sure. And I mean, those days are over. And the funny thing was, we didn't really lose any money on that gig.
Well, it used to be everybody coming over from the mainland. They would automatically get ferry fare. Yeah. They get a meal, they get whatever drinks, and hotels. And so slowly that,
Well,
it doesn't happen now. No.
And I mean, Victoria itself is just a different place than it.
Oh, it's So different.
was that, right? Like Fernwood itself was different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Fernwood,
It has changed.
Fernwood really helped make Logan's kind of what it was, because there was much more openness towards having bands doing original creative material, noise gigs, metal gigs, whatever. Because Fernwood is a little bit of a kind of a creative community in there.
It was, yeah.
Very young community.
Yeah.
And so it was really, the location really made a difference.
And really, like having, I mean, the fact that it's also this neighborhood pub in the middle of this allowed this daytime convening of people from, you know, the music was, you know, always there's something to talk about music, but you could go into the bar, have a drink, and just start talking to somebody.
It was a social hub.
And the fact that the community had so many musicians and artists and, you know, creative thinkers, I mean, you know, politicians, you know.
We had a you know, a banker and his wife were our regulars there. You could go in there at 5 o'clock and they'd go there. They live just around the corner. This is one example. And you'd see them almost every day. They're having one, maybe two drinks, and then they go home for dinner. But you'd go, it was your local. You could make it your local, just like a British pub. But then at about 9 o'clock, suddenly it turned into a nightclub, essentially. And you might be seeing a noise gig, you know. And the thing is, these two crowds would mix socially, and it really, really was positive in that everybody seemed to get along really well, despite these seemingly vast differences in temperament.
It really was special like that and unique that way, right? It's just, and you know, the thought was always like, oh man, if we could only get a place downtown or this and that, or, you know, like as far as ownership and all that goes, just for that business, right? To get the more people. So, you know, when you only have a capacity of 150 people, it's like, I mean, well, that was part of going downtown, was getting larger capacity. Was trying to get that, right?
Yeah.
150 is okay. It's not optimum.
Well, it's not optimum when you're really just, you know, trying to make a lot of money in a neighborhood where the daytime lunch and all that, like trying to run it as a restaurant as well as, you know, didn't really work.
No.
So,
well, I would argue that maybe the
great food
capacity size sort of enabled that closeness that could develop between people. The larger capacity
absolutely
encourages a lack of, you know.
Well, putting us downtown would have just suddenly made us this different place.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been what it became, right? Like
no.
Yeah.
I think what I hear was ideal, because if it was 250, it wouldn't be as intimate.
No,
it would be a
club. That's exactly it.
I was pretty happy with the 150.
Yeah.
It meant we didn't need bouncers. We never needed bouncers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was such a small.
Well, we did have bouncers a couple of times, and when we brought them in, they caused more fights.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but
then and because they ended up being police officers. So
who knew?
Go figure.
It was a very
I don't remember bouncers ever at Logan's, and we
would remove venues, like the staff were basically, if you're gonna get into, you know, the staff were bouncers, right?
If you want to put it that way. I lost count of how many gigs I worked at Logan's where there was 100 people losing their fucking minds in front of me in a mosh pit, and the band was so loud that we were ringing the fire alarm, and I was the only guy on that side of the bar. And if something started in the mosh pit, I just go in and point my finger and go, behave. And they go, oh shit, excuse me. Behave or I'm going to throw you out. They always behave. It was totally self-policing. And it was small enough that I could get away with it. If I turned
it wasn't like there wasn't incentive, because earlier on, some of these shows were not, you know, there was a lot more fighting.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of bad behavior among these scenes.
Yeah.
And what it ended up coming down to was basically saying, police yourselves,
or we won't book you.
Or it won't book you.
Yeah.
Right. And
what was the Neo-Nasties?
I mean, that's really effective.
I don't think we rebooked the Neo-Nasties, did we?
Well, the Neo-Nasties was the brawl of all brawls at Logan's.
The one night I didn't work, thank God.
Right.
I didn't work that night.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there for that. But for the most part, I mean, there were incidents, sure, but nothing serious, nothing terrible, and again, nothing that 95% of the time, the staff couldn't just deal with. And often with the help of people like our dear friend Stanley, who was always around. And if somebody got out of hand, Stanley is so strong, he just picked the guy up and take him out, the gentle giant. So I think there's a lot of bars like that.
Except for the Chuck Norris Coke guy on Christmas Eve.
There's always the exception.
That you're going in and you're seeing these Scott, like, he's doing drugs in the bar at a very, like, wow. And right, coming out, with doing these kicks and like this guy looked like a big, tall Chuck Norris guy. It's not Chuck Norris. It's
I know the guy you're talking about. Long hair.
No, it's not Chuck Norris. It's no. This guy was short. He was like in like the Dirty Dozen and anyway.
Again, that didn't happen very often.
And the guys at the brawl, the neo-Nazis brawl, where this guy got tasered into the head and still kept going.
He's still dancing.
No, not dancing. He's tearing apart the bar, right? Fighting everybody. There are tables flying back and forth. Like they did a taser. They tasered wrong people that night in the bar. They were dropping, and and then because the police came in, right, and this guy, the guy that was the root of it all, he got tasered in the head, guy. And he got a shock, and it was like watching the Hulk get more power. And I'm like, the police couldn't handle him. The only way that they were able to get him was he tripped on something, got down, and then they had leg shackles, and they put a bar across and got his arms behind him. Carried him out like that.
John Logan got his leg busted up.
Yeah.
I took him to the hospital. Again.
And what year was that? What year was that?
I don't know now.
12 years ago, 15 years ago?
12 years ago. So that was the Logan Chris.
12, maybe 12.
Chris Logan, the Chris Logan years or the John Logan?
Yeah, it would have been during the John
12, Logan. 13 years. Yeah. That was John Logan.
John was running the bar.
Well, Chris is running. Well, Chris is running the bar.
Yeah.
Okay. John is sort of there.
Right.
You
could call this the get out of my fucking bar era.
Yeah, he's the
But
he's
again, all these
the skull fuck era.
I don't want to even know about this.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you can think about it.
To know.
Yeah. You don't.
But again, having said all this, these were not normal nights at Logan.
No. This is
events. 99% of the time, it was pretty sleepy. Sleepy as far as bad behavior goes. Most people knew.
Oh yeah.
Most people knew not to misbehave at Logan's, mostly because they wanted to come back, and they knew we'd say, no, fuck off. You're a problem. We don't want you here. And people would really. They realized that if they can't go to Logan's, well, now what am I going to do? I used to have problems with two types of individuals I had the most problems with. People that whistle through their fingers. I don't know why they do it, but they would stand right next to the sound man and they would whistle through the entire performance. And I would say to them, can you please not do that? They go, what? You mean in here? And I go, yeah, it's piercing. It's really hurting my ears. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. And I'm like, why are you doing this? To attract attention to yourself?
Of course.
That seemed to be, yeah. So finally I would just say, okay, let me put this another way. Stop it or I'll kick you out of the bar. And they'd always get mad at me. And I'd say, okay, well, now you're kicked out of the bar. Get out.
They're just whistling, Scott.
Yeah, they're just whistling. And the other one was Logan's rather unwisely put a second piano at the back of the performance room of the bar.
So always somebody playing.
And there was playing is really being nice.
Oh, yeah.
Operating the piano. These people would operate the piano.
Operate.
It was playing. And I tried everything. I begged them to get rid of this piano. It stayed there for about a year.
You gotta let people groove.
I taped the keyboard shut with duct tape. They peel it off. I did everything. I put socks in the keys, and finally I would just go over and stare at them. And they go, what are you doing? I'm paying attention to you. That's what you want, right? And then they get all shy and stop. But It was nuts. The two biggest problems I had in that bar were the attention-seeking fuckwads.
It's
They
like
were
a
so
big family.
jealous.
It's
They
like
were
a
so
big
jealous that the band
family.
was getting all the attention.
They were nice people, though.
No, they weren't. I hated them.
Yeah, they're nice.
They should die.
They're all very nice.
No, I wanted to poke them in the eye with a fucking skewer.
There's
But-
fine people on both sides, Scott.
You know,
I
who
think
said
that guys, what I get from this, and I love it so much, is it sounds like the same description that you'd get for a really big family get together, and everyone's like in the rec room, and then there's
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
kids over
yeah.
here
I mean, it's kind of
smashing
unique
something.
like that because it was,
Yeah.
it was a living room type atmosphere.
Well, and
It
family
was.
is a good word.
Yeah.
It was a
Because it
family.
really was a family.
Yeah, and regardless of people goofing up like Chuck Norris guy needing to get tasered, that was like a one-off. It doesn't always happen that way in family. Most of the time,
He
everyone
wasn't
just
a family. He wasn't a family guy.
no. He was a I don't know a party crasher.
Yeah.
Bizarro.
Who did Deathwish?
Bronson.
Charles Bronson. That's what it is.
The great thing about
Okay.
Logan's was the staff family was very, very tight. We really liked each other. We looked out for each other. If people in the staff did stuff that wasn't maybe the done thing, they'd be very gently reminded of such things. I mean, there wasn't any finger pointing or anything. Everybody worked together. It was a real team. We really emphasized that. But then there was the bigger family, which was our patrons, many of whom came on, a lot of the time. Like, for instance, and they were like the metal scene, the indie scene, the noise scene. And these people were also part of our family.
And I mean, you have to credit all those people and the promoters that worked those particular scenes, because I mean, a lot of the good shows, I mean, Logan's didn't flip the bill for them. It's, the promoters that were on the line for the guarantees and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you would see it when shows are going badly. They would be so stressed out. You could tell a good night because you'd have promoters that would just constantly be stressed out, always counting money. How many, this and that.
Yeah.
If it was a good night, you weren't worrying about it, and they were buying shots for everybody, right? So, they'd be at the end of the night be passed out on the cooler. If it wasn't a good night, well, they would leave early, usually before the bands have finished. And then the bands are like, oh, what's going on?
Where's the
I don't
money?
know. Where's the freaking promoter, right? Because people confuse also, like, Logan's, we did a few shows that we would promote ourselves, but the bulk of it, very little, right? Earlier on, it's basically as soon as the cutoff came for our own promotion, as a promotion company, for me, a big thing was when we could stop doing, posters, and the cutoff for the actual promotion materials we couldn't do that anymore, right? And it's like, okay, well, that makes it a lot harder. So, I mean, the shows for us became a lot fewer than they did earlier, in the earlier days where we would self-promote, because we'd always have Metropole,
right?
And they would drop off the posters and everything, and eventually it just got harder and harder. So, I mean, people also forget that music venues pre-COVID were already disappearing. They were
struggling. Yeah.
It was already a hard, bit to chew, because, I mean, unless the owners owned the building or the business, outright, then people are always looking for something that's gonna, do better. In our case, we had people that owned the building, and it's real estate, right? So.
Well, and they were motivated to keep the bar going because it kept two of the three brothers, gainfully employed.
Yeah, but not
which was apparently part
post-COVID.
No, pre-COVID.
Yeah,
I'm talking about. That was part of the sort of idea, I believe, when the bar was actually started, was that the Chris and John would run it because they were kind of, I guess, at loose ends in their lives at that point in time.
Well, Stuart also wanted to get a sense of what the business model looks like.
Well, for Stuart, it was a real estate investment, and and that was sort of the byproduct, was the bar, gave Chris and John something to run. So it was great in the early days. It worked, like all bars. And you remember, this is 20 years. Like in the beginning, it was like, hey, let's do that. Let's get Dick Dale. Blah, blah. By the time we got to the end, it was like, is this going to cost us any money? And that was the big thing. Nothing that cost us money was acceptable because by then it was like, we need to make money.
We had guarantees, like I would be giving out guarantees, but at this point it was like, you be sure, like
how many guarantees would you have given out the last year?
Oh, in the last year,
Very many.
I think Bob Log was the last.
Yeah.
The last guarantee for anyone. Well, it would have been B.A. Johnson.
Really?
He has a guarantee.
That's really low.
We've never had to. Well, years ago, he was like, I think we had a poor turnout once or something.
Wow.
He made his. He made a good amount, but he just asked me like if there's any way that we could make a guarantee. So I put in a guarantee, and so we always had this guarantee for him, but we've never had to pay it out.
Right? I remember his guarantee being really reasonable. I mean, he is the one-man band, so.
Yeah, it is reasonable.
Yeah.
It is.
But,
I mean, most things are reasonable, but what's not reasonable is when you get like people trying to do shows like, okay, we're like you can, like wrestling packages, right? You get like, they come, they'll set up a ring, you can charge tickets for it, but then they have all these things for the wrestlers, like all these riders. And you're like, well, a wrestling show would be pretty cool, but like you could do, I don't know, midget wrestling, little people wrestling, however, I don't know, vertically challenged wrestling, or you get all these packages. But it was just like, oh, I'd love to do one of these, but this is kind of out of our, just to put a ring in takes up a lot of
how did we get onto wrestling?
Just the kind of
options.
I just felt like talking about,
I know we have 10% of your battery remaining.
Yeah, it's true.
That's a concern. Do you have a plug-in that you could plug your phone into?
Not at the moment. 10%. It's 10% to that. Like it's last time we had this conversation about my phone running out, that was at 20%. So maybe I should.
Yeah, we're going to run out.
Okay.
I think what I'm going to do, I want to get Scott's story, Scott, and how he.
All right, you can find an extension cord.
Yeah, and how did this? What, as you were sort of saying earlier, but I want to get it, from you direct again at this moment. What made you become, go from being the recorder, the mixer, the master, to doing live sound at Logan's? And in my opinion, and I think a lot would agree with me on this, becoming a like a figurehead for Logan's the sound.
It's funny because
Henderson. So how
in 2000 was when I did my first gig at Logan's, and by then I'd been recording bands in town for 18 years, and I'd done hundreds of recordings, like literally hundreds. So I was a record producer if I was anything, and I was also a musician. And I swore black and blue and red all over, I will never do live sound. It's the most thankless job in the world. It's just amazing how people will shit on the sound man. And so one day, I don't remember the exact details, but it was like, we need a sound man for the Murder City Devils. And it was like, well, that's your problem. Well, the gig won't happen without, we need you. Okay. Well, you don't even have a PA. Well, we've got the Hootenanny PA. Oh, good. I get to do the Murder City Devils through a 300-watt PA. Well, the Murder City Devils were stacks. They had Ampeg SVT cabs, So I put a mic in the kick drum, gave the vocals to Mike, and said, there you go. And they were, oh God, the sound was so good. I said, you're kidding, right? And the next thing I knew, I was doing sound there every so often. And as time went by, a variety of people, Ryan Beatty did sound for a while. Danny Wise did sound for a long time.
Yeah.
In fact, Danny Wise, I wasn't the primary sound man there for a few years, about 2000.
Dan Wise was for a while.
2003 to 6 or 7, I think, was more Dan than me. But we kind of traded up, and Dan needed the money, so, great. But then Dan got working more, and he was just too tired. So basically, it ended up being me because everybody else had better things to do. And the next thing I knew, I was working at Logan's all the time. And I kind of just sort of fell into it. And I realized I didn't know anything about doing live sound. I literally knew nothing. all I knew was that I had reasonably good ears. And so I would just simply mix according to how it sounded to me. And for the most part, that worked for most people. It probably cost me my hearing, because my hearing is not as good as it was 20 years ago. And I think the several million metal bands that I did probably has something to do with that. But I ended up having fun because the bands are all so different. So I could do metal, I could do noise, I could do pop, I could do lesbian folk singers. It didn't matter because I like all that stuff. I remember Kenji Fuse came, the violist for the Victoria Symphony, and we did a performance of Terry Riley's In C, which is a avant-garde classical composition. And I got to play the marimba, the one note, ding, 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 which really was hard to do because I was also trying to drink beer at the same time. So we did a lot of really cool things. And that sustained me. The fact that it was, a pretty easy gig most nights really helped. And I could also still work at the studio, of course, because studios was mostly weekend days. And what was more, there was the added benefit. I met a lot of bands who were looking to record. And I'd say, well, I got a studio. And next thing you know, I was recording them. And that happened a lot. So it was symbiotic. It really worked both ways. And I got, a lot of people in town know me now because I was the sound guy, being a sound man, because I'm not really a sound man. I like people like Mike Hall and guys like that. They're sound men. They know what they're doing. I just listen and think, wow, I'm not good. And as a musician, a composer, a record producer, and then a sound man. So, but most people don't know that. And a video star now.
And a video store. Yeah.
I'm doing videos on YouTube because you gotta do something.
Right, exactly.
Video star.
We need to talk more about your channel.
In my own mind.
And the projects that the two of you are together as well. I want us to touch on that a bit later too, because those are some really cool things that you guys have been doing. I would say your video, your vlog, Scott, maybe is a bit new, but perhaps that's something that is, in a sense, you've always been doing. You just maybe didn't have a video camera in front of you for every single experience of it. So it is definitely something that's been ongoing. But yeah, I think it's really important for people to hear sort of like, the foundation and the, formative stories associated with Logan's, because, oh no, dang it, you guys are, oh no, you're not frozen. Oh, thank God. I was so worried you're frozen. Because it's.
No, we're just very still.
Are they frozen or are they sitting still?
No.
But it's so important because I don't know, as what my own experience, as I know is shared by many people that are fans and have loved Logan's for many reasons. And just as you guys have described, in the last few minutes, Logan's was a family space, and Fine was a pub, and it was a music venue.
Don't bring your family there.
Well, no, I guess not. You shouldn't. Your family that you make in.
Well, unless you're going to, I mean, we have had all ages events though, where kids come to a metal. Kids come out to brunch for bluegrass or for a metal show, right? So
yeah. So there's the all ages aspect that did happen for some things, and I did bring my.
We have had those events, but
another thing,
we had a burger of some sort.
We also became a bit of a hub.
Sorry.
It's the interaction. I was saying that I had brought my mom out a number of times, and I think we actually had like a burger of some sort at some point. It was a good one. But yeah, it is different. You were gonna say, Scott, it's a hub?
Well, it was a hub. We should briefly mention that towards the end, we became a hub for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of their events, their burlesque shows. They did regular burlesque shows, I think, every Wednesday for some time. And they became part of our family. They always were. We were always totally receptive.
Look, Logan's isn't really, it's the Tavern of the Damned is the real name, right?
Yes.
And that's known amongst everybody that, has really, played there, they're regulars, right? We're known as Tavern of the Damned. And the way I see it is like, everybody that's damned, that's where you felt welcome, right? And it's whether it's you're damned to like play music or, you're damned by your parents or
you're like
whatever it is,
damned for all time.
You kind of fit right in, right?
Yeah.
So
it was where if you didn't feel comfortable at the Sticky Wicket, and if you didn't feel comfortable at the Library Club or the Irish Times, you'd probably feel comfortable at Logan's.
I would argue it's authenticity. There was an undeniable authenticity about Logan's in regards to the way patrons and staff and performers navigated the space and navigated events. There was an authenticity that you couldn't find at a lot of other venues that made it a very real and very personable experience. I think is the
very natural
lost, right?
There's nothing contrived about it.
No.
It was it just occurred naturally. We just kind of did what seemed right, and that's what became Logan's.
Yeah. Yeah. It was real. There was no pretense there, which was really, really enjoyable. And I suppose it could go spiral off in a totally different direction, but we're not going to do. But, one could argue that in a time with social media where people can manicure the way they want to be seen in a lot of ways, authenticity isn't really the priority, if you know what I mean. So, right? But
it's illusion.
Conversation. It's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I think that aspect or that element of authenticity that you couldn't find anywhere else in the form of art, music, community, neighborhood, friendship, family, and all of these really beautiful things were just not totally being captured in a lot of the articles that I read about the closing of Logan's. There was like this emphasis on being, the alternative bar, the alternative this. And
Misfits.
Misfits, yes. And like, okay, sure.
And the grime,
Yeah, there is validity to it being a alternative space, but the alternativeness wasn't just by being rebels without a cause. There was a deeper meaning there, a deeper connection. And I think it's a loss. I really do. And I think that, looking forward into the future, as you guys even mentioned how, and we all have observed, venues have been decreasing over time in Victoria, and there's only specific ones that are still functional. I don't know what it's going to look like. What were your?
It will change.
It's already
so dramatically.
It's been, like I said, it's already been changing for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's, I really feel like this is, like Logan's was always a bit of a, thorn in the side of the average Victorian. It was sort of a scary place, something that, it kind of showed you,
one of the annoying things about this recent outpouring of grief from the major news media in town, if I will, is that they painted Logan's as this sort of dangerous pit full of misfits where bad things happened. And I mean, it doesn't help that we're telling these stories, but for the most part, it was a pretty calm place.
Well, I mean, honestly,
you would find stuff like that at the Sticky Wicket. You would find stuff like that at the Capitol Ballroom, but the media wouldn't say, the scary Sticky Wicket full of misfits. The Sticky Wicket, you can't wear a black hat in there because it's gang related. They had some problems there too. But for whatever reason, the media wanted to portray Logan's as that creepy place full of misfits.
Well, it wasn't, it's also the whole rest of the city, not necessarily the media, but also like, the downtown bars. Right? And just the community itself, like the service industry, the bar associations, and like all this thing, we're business that they aren't getting. That's what is this thing up there that they're playing by sort of different rules than we have, and and anyway.
And of course, the funny thing was when they got the chance to book stuff that we would normally book, they weren't actually all that keen about it because it didn't make them as much money as the DJ nights and all the other crap that they would do. And so it was funny. They didn't like us because we existed, but they didn't really want to take our market share because they had bigger fish to fry. So but nightclub business, it's competitive. Who knew?
You know, I will be honest, in my utmost opinion, because, you know, as a person who attended and was connected to Logan's in my own way, you know, I can't say that I really had negative experiences at Logan's, and that's coming from a young woman, right? You know, I think if there would be a negative experience to have, it would be surprising. Like, what, that happened at Logan's? I didn't expect that. And frankly, in most opinion, the most dangerous space would have, in my mind, and for many years, has been the V Lounge in Victoria. The V Lounge, with its connection to all kinds of interesting things. And I still remember when there was that cook that got stabbed at the V Lounge. There was a whole, it was a mess. There's a lot of bizarre underground stuff there, but that's a place that's presented as acceptable. And admittedly, if we're going to a semi-political, semi-feminist perspective, they were very misogynistic spaces. And what Logan's projected was a very inclusive space without having to call it an inclusive space, right?
Well, honestly, like if someone wasn't being respected, or, you know, just having some sort of common decency to someone else, you know, they got shown the door. We filtered the place pretty good, right? Yeah. So it's like, you know, I'll bring it back to the pirate ship. It's like you're walking on board, and you can either get down with it or see you, man, you're overboard, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it was like that, you know.
But no, you're right. I mean, I was there thousands of nights, literally, and I threw 2 punches the whole time. And one was we were throwing a guy out for running around pinching girls' bums, which he didn't seem to think was all that bad. I thought he punched Mikel in the head. It turned out he didn't. And so,
well, I just kind of stepped back.
I punched him in the head, and that was the end of that.
Logan's was a place with no pretense. Going into it, you could relax, and you knew that you could be accepted in the process. Something that is actually very hard to find in Victoria. It was very much like a family, and because of that, there was a great deal of diversity in both the patrons and also the artists and musicians that came, performed, and simply hung out at Logan's. And because of this, that led to a lot of different people coming together and being creative because of this very welcoming and supportive environment. Scott and Mikel are case in point. They met at Logan's, and they started creating music together because of meeting at Logan's. Hierarctic is their band, and it's been ongoing, and the music that you hear throughout this interview is from their recent album, False Passage. It's my favorite track, which is Tit.
You want a beer?
Sure.
Hi.
Well, an angel of mercy has shown up.
That's wonderful.
Or do you want this one back?
Oh, you like the tire biter, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure.
Souk beers. Souk beers.
Got some bad dog beer going here.
Our favorite bar now is out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods.
Oh, I like the way they
make
look. Nice.
We have our beers.
Oh, in the middle of nowhere, but you still have beer.
All right, well, here's the Logan's Pub. And to all those that toiled in the bowels of it, to all of those who played in it,
to all those that got on the dinghies and fled the burning, sinking ship.
We lost a few friends.
Them, you know?
We lost a few friends. Haven't mentioned some people. Dieter Darker, our buddy Dieter, who left the door for a long time. He's not with us. Our friend Robbie Crossan died. Our friend Aaron died, who was one of the day regulars. A lot of people have gone.
Jay Brown,
of course. You know,
lots. There's been lots.
There's been a lot of people.
Lots of weddings.
Yeah, well, 20 years. A family loses people in 20 years. It's inevitable, but it's nice to remember them. And you know, they were all really important to Logan's. Betty was gone, I believe.
Jim,
right. So
then Birdman was Birdman forever.
Is Birdman gone?
Birdman's been gone for a long time.
You mean the guy that had the screeching argument with Raymond?
No, that's not Birdman. You would think he'd be a Birdman. No, Birdman was I forget his real name, but he's like he lived across the street from Christine, and he's like a really old guy, white hair, kind of looked like Beaker. From
I know who you're talking
white
about.
hair is kind of sticking up, and he was just like,
Yes.
yeah, he'd emptied himself.
He
the
was
bar a
not.
few
Yeah,
times,
he was
you
in
know,
bad shape. One of the great moments, one of my favorite moments of Logan's was we had a regular who I won't mention because he's a good guy, but he would get about 5 beers in and start communicating with people that weren't there. And there was another guy there.
There were lots of chalkboards.
He was write stuff on the chalkboards.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy there who, I don't know, he seemed to be a little bit half a bubble out of plum, perhaps. And at one point I saw him playing pool by himself, and he would miss a shot and then he'd punch himself in the face. Anyway,
we have a song about Logan's on one of our records. And it's called Raymond and Stan.
Raymond and Stan.
Yeah, that's on Road.
Raymond and this guy got into an
argument. Generate stories. I mean, those two guys.
Raymond and this guy got into an argument, and they went beyond speech. So they both started to screech at each other like ostriches. Yeah. Right in front of the bar at Logan's.
Yeah.
5 o'clock at night.
It's like
I was just like, wow, only at Logan's would you have people screeching at each other like angry ostriches, because they're so filled with inarticulate rage that they can't form words. And that's the kind of place Logan's was, push the envelope, baby.
I wish that would have happened during a noise night, one of Andy's broken mic nights, and then that would have been in the background.
This is 100% organic, though. No pretense. It's just
we had a recording of my landlady. We had a recording of my landlady losing her mind on my neighbor, which we added high Arctic music to. And it's about 12 minutes of insanity. We used to use it to drive people out of the bar.
Yeah, at the end of the night.
But there was a problem. There'd always be the 2 or 3 people that go, "This is great. What is this?"
Yeah.
I would have been one of those people. And I was just going to ask you, could you get me that file? Because I'd love to.
It's on our Bandcamp.
It's on our Bandcamp.
And it's called Meatball Meltdown.
Yeah.
Oh my, I've played that song repeatedly.
The actual story behind it is amazing.
The story behind it is my landlady had told my roommate, or my neighbor really, that he could have some bad hamburgers she had. And then she made a bunch of meatballs for herself. He accidentally interpreted that to mean that he could eat the meatballs. And my neighbor was schizophrenic, and he wasn't in a good way. And the lady who ran the rooming house that I lived in was a very seriously alcoholic person with a really bad temper. And when
chocolate milk and vodka.
Chocolate milk and vodka when the ulcer flared up. And when she discovered her meatballs had been eaten, she completely lost her mind. And I had a meltdown. I had the presence of mind to record this. I recorded tens of hours of this house, and it became the Meatball Meltdown. So,
and the beauty is that she goes on this crazy rage, and just all about her toilet paper, her all this
and
craziness.
She's mean.
And she's mean. She's
I hope you suffer.
Yeah, and and she's screaming at this guy through the door. At which point
he's gone.
He's jumped out his window.
The window.
So the actual rage is being directed at a door.
A door.
An empty room behind a door.
Behind a door.
And
12 minutes of real, honest to God, spleen venting rage. And by this point, she knew better than to tangle with me, so she just left me alone.
But you can cut, it's just the world. You can imagine it through the recording, because, it starts off with him actually being behind the door to this room. Yeah. And he's saying something like the little Hindu that
he says, "Where's the Hindu that's running you?
Yeah.
You're not a person, you're just an avatar." Whatever that means. This man had some serious issues, and he would talk to himself in tongues. Which was disturbing. One night at 4 a.m, I was in bed asleep, or almost asleep, and I heard him yell at the top of his lungs, "Get out of me!"
Hey boys, close the door.
So you wonder, what was in him? Yeah. I don't think I want to know. Anyway.
It's the little Hindu that's running all of us.
I used to call this place the House of Fear. And I recorded, I'm not making this up, maybe 20 hours of just the goings on. And then I overdubbed them all on top of each other. And I made a thing called Midnight at the House of Fear. It includes at least 20 visits from the RCMP, numerous meltdowns, assaults, wailing, just everything.
I mean, they really should have had a bouncer at their house.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like,
should have been selling tickets.
Definitely more happening than Logan's.
Yeah, that was my post-divorce residence, and it was appropriately grim. But I managed to laugh. People listen to this recording. It's 3 CDs long of just insanity, and people listen to it, and they're like, "How can you laugh at this?" And I go, "Well, what else can I do?" Anyway, I lived there for a year and a half.
I've got to ask you where that is. I'll pay you for that recording.
It's on Bandcamp.
Is it on for High Art?
High Arctic Bandcamp, the Meatball Meltdown.
Yeah.
Yes, but also this 3 CD recording.
Oh, that I don't have.
House of Fear. No, that's separate. Okay.
It's very ambient. It's very long and it's very ambient. The idea was that I was going to write a short story about the House of Fear that would take as long to read as it takes to play these 3 CDs.
It's like music concrete with the book.
That's the plan anyway.
Please do it.
Someday.
This actually is a perfect segue because I realized you guys started introducing the background story to this wonderful song that I had no idea that it had this story, and I've been playing it, and we're going to hear it again on the show just because of the story. But we didn't actually introduce your project, and that reminds me, number one, you guys need to introduce it. Number two, I was going to ask, did you two meet because of being at Logan's and working at Logan's? And
yes.
You guys making projects together. What was your first project together that you guys made?
Well, project isn't really the right word. It's a band.
Okay.
And I should tell the story because the original band was Walrus, and Walrus was Michael and Andy Vanier, who worked at the bar, and Dave Ivano, who also worked at the bar, I believe.
Yeah, he was working door.
And I had done sound for this band numerous times by this point, and I memorized music pretty quickly. So when I hear a band a few times, I get to know their music. And they had a gig booked for a Saturday night, and sadly, their drummer could not make it. And they were talking, Dave Ivano couldn't make it. So they were going to have to cancel. And I was sitting at the bar, and this is not the first time this happened to me at Logan's, by the way. And they were all like, Jesus, too bad, we didn't know a drummer that knew the music. And I went, well, I play the drums, and I think I know the music. And they were like, well, you want to play this show? I went, okay. So we set up at noon on Saturday and rehearsed.
Yeah, had a practice.
And then,
at this time, we really only had like
8 songs.
Yeah, I guess I always have a thought in 8s as far as, because I've noticed most standard records have an average of 8 songs, and so I've thought that way, but so we had something like that.
So we played the show, and then Dave basically said, oh, I can't play anymore. And so,
well, no, he actually was supposed to show up for the gig, but he took off with a new girlfriend off to the Gulf Islands. He ended up on Saturna and just never came back.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, Dave's not here anymore.
Yeah. So I said, well, okay, I'll play drums, and I do play the drums.
And oddly, the interesting thing is that Dave has always been a big Northern Exposure fan, and he was like, man, he was really hating his job, and he was like, man, I really wish I could get a job like up in the north. And then he gets this phone call, and his girlfriend's like, oh, I signed us up for teaching English or teaching jobs up in Northwest Territories with the Dogwood people, and that's where he is now.
Yeah.
So he's in the high Arctic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Literally in the high Arctic. That is really sweet.
We should talk about the name. So the name was Walrus.
Yeah.
And when I was officially kind of in the band, the first thing I said was, I'd be really shocked if there aren't 15 other walruses out there. And as it turned out, there was a lot of them, and they were all bad.
Well, there's two. There's one big Australian band
called
Walrus, and then there was a wedding camp, like a wedding band.
And then there was countless Beatle tribute bands. So we had to come up with. I said, we got to come up with a new name. This is no good. Right. And we ultimately settled on the High Arctic, since it was kind of related thematically, And, you know, and then so
our interests were just kind of in, like, Andy was reading lots of like Jack London. And,
well, and Michael is from Estonia, or well, he's Estonian, not from Estonia, and Estonia is very much a Nordic country where, you know, the cold
we
weather
got caribou in the north there.
You know, there's a cold weather mentality, if you will. And I'm fascinated with the Canadian high Arctic. So it all kind of just worked out, you know, it was in keeping with all of our interests. And then immediately we added a second drummer, the wonderful and talented Joel Fernandez, who, needless to say, is like me, not a drummer first and foremost. But that was perfect because we could just play drums the way we played drums. We got along great. It was wonderful playing with another drummer.
Fun playing with
Most drummers will tell you they hate playing with other drummers, but I'm not a drummer, so it didn't matter.
You guys had polyrhythms and stuff going on.
Yeah, we did. We did a lot of really cool stuff. And there was one memorable occasion in Vancouver where we played a song where we wouldn't play during the verses.
The Honey Lounge.
The Honey Lounge, this terrible room. And so during the verses, we just looked at each other and swapped drum kits. And then we'd play the next chorus, and then the verse would come, and then we swapped drum kits again. It was really fun.
Yeah,
and we had a whole section in between us of cymbals and garbage that we were both. It was fair game for both drummers to play, so that was really fun. But then we lost our bass player, and as is always the case in my life, well, now we need a bass player. I guess I'll play the bass. I think I played keyboards briefly too.
Yeah, no, we did keyboards for a bit while Andy was still.
But I discovered that there was no keyboard amplifier in the world loud enough to compete with the high Arctic's guitarists. So that kind of went the way of the dodo.
That would be hard.
I blew up several amps. I blew up a couple of amps trying to compete. And then I ended up being the bass player, which is what I am now. And we've decided to, because we're perverse, we now have a second bass player, the wonderful and exciting Don Chessa.
Well, they are 4-string bass and 6-string bass. So Scott plays 6-string.
And Don's 4.
Kind of great because it's like you can play guitar too, right?
Yeah, well, I can do crazy wanky solos on it, or I can hold down the bottom and let Don go into his sonic exploration.
So it's freed you up to do other stuff.
Yeah, well, it's creative. And our drummer currently is Dave Houghton. Previously, we had Mr. John McMillan, who was a dear friend, and he played. And John Polker was our other guitar player during the era that we did the album. Roud
and because
Roud was
Man Hair was the last one with 2 drummers.
Every album is a different lineup. So.
Brad Julie was briefly in the band for that period of time, just doing the song. I think we played one gig with her on maybe 2. We might have done Logan's, and we did one in Vancouver at what's that place called?
I do not remember any of this.
Yeah,
I guess Senility.
We played, and it was Polker was just a roadie for us. It was before he was there, but we played with Chenery in the Tower.
Anyway, at any rate, now currently the High Arctic, we have another album in the can. It is an album with songs for the most part.
It's ready. It just needs artwork.
Yeah.
And I'm just lazy.
But now currently we are concentrating a little bit more when we get together to play. And both Michael and I have very small bubbles right now.
Smart.
So we don't get out much. And when we get together, we improvise pretty much. When we start rehearsing, it's free improvisation.
It's something we were always doing,
But now we're really concentrating on it. And we go over some songs every practice. But we really get together because we love to make new music up spontaneously. And some of it we're really happy with. Some of it's better than others, of course, because it's improvisation.
Yeah.
But it's really liberating. It's really fun. We're with our friends. We love our bandmates. I mean, the whole thing about being in a band is being with people you like to be with.
And I mean, those are the projects we're releasing right now. And
those are the things that are
it's a series that are things that we're currently releasing, and the album will get released. It's just
and they're
putting it together. These projects, just titling them as Heavy Trips and then giving them strange titles to the thing, because
the key difference between the two is that the songs that are on the album are, for the most part, Michael's songs. Michael brings them to the band. He plays them to us, and then we kind of turn it into a form that we can play. because they're usually full of quirks and idiosyncrasies.
Most of them have, well, not most of them, but quite a few of them have these moments for the improv that we've always sort of been doing. But the improv warm up and all that stuff, what I really feel it's really good at doing is really tuning our ears to each other, right? It's really how well we're listening to what's going on and what the other person's doing. Maybe they want to take something in a different direction, and it just helps in the overall playing of music, right?
All of us are really into improvised music. Donnie Chessa is a huge fan of free jazz and improv jazz and like really outside jazz.
I mean, our commonality is just our freaking love of music. Like, that ties into the model of Logan's, right? It's like, this is what we do. We're like, okay, let's see where this goes. Let's give it, what we've got right now,
The following clip was provided by Mike Isaacson of Crashing Into Things. It's of High Arctic playing at Logan's on an undisclosed date, unfortunately, but we know that it's definitely not recent because it's not featuring False Passage tracks. Do enjoy this moment of being able to see both High Arctic playing in Logan's and being able to see the Logan stage again.
It's
we're just simply having to find a way to express ourselves differently, because you know what, just between you and me and the computer and the internet, a bar like Logan's is not going to happen again anytime soon. No. I'd be very surprised if it happens again in the form it was in before, a small sweaty room full of people banging into each other. It's not going to happen. And the sooner we come to grips with this, the sooner we can start working on a new model for what will help disseminate creative music and what will help create creative music. And there's a whole chorus of people out there going, music is going to die. There's no live music. And I keep saying, look at 1941. Look at the first musicians recording strike. Look at World War II. Look at Shostakovich in Leningrad during the 900-day siege, writing his greatest symphony. Music will endure. It will.
It does. Art always does.
Well, the people that are in it for the right reasons, which is because they can't do anything. They are damned to do what they do.
Yeah.
Right. And that,
the people whining the loudest are the people that are trying to milk music for as much money as they can.
Yeah.
I have never made music for money, and I never will. I mean, if I can make money, great. But I make music because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I've spent $250,000 in my life for the luxury of making my own music the way I want to make it, which is really a privilege when you think about it. So, I mean, it hasn't slowed me down. I posted 6 songs to the internet this week. So, I could give a shit. And
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, no, you have to adapt. I'm in my 7th decade. I'm going to have to adapt,
I think that's so beautiful and inspiring. And I think that's what people really need to hear right now.
I agree. I completely agree.
There's a lot of people that know this and they're like, yeah, I know this, but I think it really means a lot to creative individuals to hear other creative people when faced with adversity. Like, okay, Logan's.
Well, we're both faced with serious adversity here. I've got COPD stage 4. If I get COVID, I'm dead.
Yeah.
In 72 hours. If he gets it, he's dead.
I have no immune system, and I have
you can't stick around.
So, the thing I want people to really realize is that Logan's was a special place, and the building allowed us all to get in there and convene and really see that, wow, okay, there's all this stuff going on out there. Well, all those people that were in there being creative, having those conversations, connecting, they're still out there, So it's not like all is lost.
No.
And the truly creative people that you were there to be among, to begin with, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing.
No, this is a new challenge.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't, history is such a broad thing, right? And this is just a tiny little speck in it. So the idea of people like getting together again and whatever, like, maybe moshing, whatever form of dance or entertainment comes into being or expression, it's going to happen. It's just, it might not happen when you want it to. Right? Like
moshing might go the way of the dodo, right?
Yeah, or whatever.
It's like saying, I want to do the Lindy Hop. Well, that's going to date it, right? And moshing is dated now.
Yeah.
Moshing is dated. Who says you got to mosh? Maybe you can rub elbows.
I mean, Charleston was the thing to do for a while.
How everybody's shaking hands with their elbows, right?
Ballroom dancing.
Maybe you can do the elbow shake. Who knows? It'll be fun to see what happens.
I think if we can keep an open mind and be receptive to innovation in a nutshell is creativity.
I want to see stages like out in the woods and like people getting down with the music, like on their little patch of moss or whatever, right? And having their beers and whatever, like
or something else,
or whatever, right? I just it's like if you're a creative thinker, there's and there's plenty of us out there. There are things that the creative aspect is, if anything, is going to be put into like sort of a compression chamber, right? Where the coal turns into a diamond. It filters out all the crap. And how much crap is out there right now?
Well, I think of things like David P. Smith's Forbes Street Music Club, and they're doing millions of all the members of this club are doing videos of them performing. They'll have event weeks. So Golden Country Week. Okay, everybody does a Golden Country song. Stuff like this is
we're both part of that as well.
Yeah. What is it called? I'm sorry, I missed that. What was it called?
The Forbes Street Music Club.
And then this connects to another thing too. Like, now I'm doing sort of the same thing with a similar club in Nebraska.
Exactly. Oh, you're doing that one.
I got invited. And
there you go.
I'm there, and I got to sing some like Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen.
There you go.
last week.
When was the last time you played in Nebraska, right?
Yeah, right.
So this is an opportunity.
So I'm not a huge fan of the streaming thing, I got to say, but I do like, people connecting, and I like that, it's there. But as far as shows go and doing like the live streaming shows, it just feels like, like it's just so obvious that things are not right now. Yeah. Right. It's
true,
just
true.
You feel the ghost of the old days lingering around.
I will temper. I must say that my comments must be taken with the proviso that I've never really cared a lot about playing live. I'm a studio guy. I'm a control freak. Playing live to me is like being a living, breathing jukebox for something that you've already done better in the past. And I like to move forward. Having said that, I enjoy playing live when I do. I've enjoyed the touring that I've done.
I like to go play
music. But it's very different.
I like to play music, and I like to play with the crowd, because when you have a really good show and the crowd is interacting with you,
then it is creative.
It makes you it gives you a charge that is channeling, and it's that connection. Yeah. And it's a room that is really freaking moving.
The room is full of love.
And you're playing fully charged. You get that energy from an audience. Absolutely, right?
I mean,
I do enjoy that part of the process.
Us control freaks like it less, but when it works, it's great.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a performative element that makes for it to be a ritualized experience when you are doing a live performance, and there is an interesting exchange that takes place between the audience and the artist that is hard to explain. It is, I would say, a spiritual experience. However, I totally understand.
Music is as spiritual as you can get in my book,
I would argue. And that's why jumping televangelists get up in the air and they start speaking in tongues and tap dancing, because they're feeding off being watched, let's be honest.
Yeah, it taps into that thing that,
Yes, there's a tribal element, and I mean tribal in the positive sense, in that we are in a large group, all bonded together, sharing an interesting experience. So there is that is hard to really forgive losing right now, but there's other ways to innovate around that, I really think that what you guys are doing and the way you're adapting to it is really quite inspiring and is a great sort of example.
Well, we're fortunate enough to be able to go and have a practice space, get together, and be able to record everything. Not everyone has that. I do have a sadness for losing what we had. I'm gonna miss booking. I miss booking. I miss the fact of the bar being there and being able to channel everything that happens into there, right? So I do. That sucks.
Yeah,
sucks to lose the venue. I think it is a loss for the music community. I'm
sad,
but we got to be hopeful.
I've really lost my family in many respects, because as time went on and when I got into my 20 years, I would have a very large group of the clientele of Logan's that treated me like family. They were really happy to see me. Bands would show up, hey man, and I'm really going to miss that, because I'll never experience that again. Like I say, it's very, very unlikely I'll ever do live sound again.
And I always really enjoyed I was always fighting for everything I could give the bands for their night, right? So it was between I was sort of the the person that would be the go-between between the bar and the bands, and then the people that really worked for the bands, which were the Door and Scott and myself, right? We're we were sort of these pillars between and communicators between the actual bar itself and the artists.
We were the advocates for the artists. We would both really try hard to make the artists' experience at Logan's a very positive.
I just wanted to give everybody everything, right?
Well, of course,
unless of course,
And I knew
it was animal sacrifice or human cannibalism on stage. Then you have to sort of say no.
Well, I
don't know.
I used to really like it. I'll tell you what. One of the best things for me was a band would show up from Sudbury, and they'd go, "Oh my God, we've had 3 gigs in a row where the sound was terrible. we're so happy to be at Logan's because we know you're good. And we hadn't done anything yet. And I'd be like, wow, that's interesting. And so, you know, and so of course I would do, this would spur me to do as good a job as possible. And I would tell these guys, I say, look, I've been on the stage. I've met that sound man. I'm not going to be him. I'm going to be you. I'm going to remember. And so these people would love me.
Well, we're musicians.
Even if it wasn't even that good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're musicians, so we understand the musician's point of view, right?
We had sympathy.
I mean, you think about it, like, you know, it was usually Doorman, myself, and Scott. We were all playing a band together.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
We know your pain. We feel your pain. Even if it's a terrible metal band from Russia, we had one. They were actually not terrible. They were pretty
We actually had a good, there was one that played like giant balalaikas. What were they called, man?
Fuck, who are they?
They were great.
You know, someday I'm going to write a list
It was this giant
of every instrument I
balalaika
did
with
live.
a little stand.
I actually did a hurdy-gurdy. I
Yeah,
did many tubas. I did my own tuba. What am I talking about? The scope of what we did at Logan's is vast. I'll tell you the best band I ever saw at Logan's.
All right, do it.
20 years is a band from Sudbury. They have almost no internet profile. They were called Varge.
Varge. All right.
And they did a record for a label in Edmonton that also did Dixie's Death Pool. Sorry, Run Chico Run.
Wow.
No. Anyways, they played Logan's to about 8 people, and they blew my fucking mind. I bought every piece of merch they had. They were excellent, and good luck finding anything out about them on the internet.
If you can,
we had some great shows where nobody would show up.
Absolutely, all the great shows.
I think about the Hylozoists, right? Which was just freaking beautiful. It was just basically me and Brandon, and I'm not sure if you were doing sound for it or somebody, but we were there. It was empty, and they were fantastic. I mean, they had xylophones, and like it was like this beautiful theatrical music.
Did they have African xylophones?
No,
not ballophones. Okay.
No.
Yeah, we had some stuff. We had African ballophones in there. We had everything. It was insane.
when you did have different bands that would come in that were really exceptional, that you guys liked a lot, and there wasn't a really huge crowd that came, why do you think that was? Because that's always going to happen, but why do you think that was?
It's just, I mean,
sometimes the day of the
so
week, there's stuff that we might be excited about that as people that are really into music, that the general climate in Victoria is not, they're not, or it's the day of the week, and in some, I don't know, there's the promotion behind it sometimes is lacking, or it could all be in place, and there's something happening in another bar across town,
it's
right?
all of those things, but I think the key is nowadays there's so many bands, there's so much music being released. It's like I'm old. I grew up in the 60s. If you were in any kind of a decent rock band, you'd get a record deal because there weren't that many bands. Now, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Like if you look up Beatle tribute bands, there's thousands of them.
No, I'll pass.
There's thousands of them. I mean, really. So what it is there's so much music out there that the average punter simply can't sift through it all.
There isn't the same audience in
you have to be dedicated to find a lot of this stuff.
Like if we had the same stuff going on in like a city like Toronto or even Vancouver or whatever, then some of these shows wouldn't have been empty for sure. They wouldn't have been. It's just we don't have the same pool of people, right?
Just being really good and really original isn't enough anymore. You have to have a story, you have to have promotion, you have to have product, you have to have.
It's the nature of the city, though.
I think it's the same everywhere. Like
I need it.
Even when I was in Toronto, I remember the best band in Toronto when I lived there was a band called the Garbage Men. Bass, clarinet, bass, and vocal and drums. Nobody in Toronto liked them. I thought they were great. I'll never forget, they did a great song about bestiality called Wild Thingy, which I thought was really funny. But they were really good, but they had no promotion. They had no media profile. This is in 1985. and they're probably unknown, but I thought they were great. So, you know, that's the story of a million bands.
Art Fag. When I discovered an Art Fag record, I felt that way.
When I'm done.
Sorry, what's that?
That's how I felt when I discovered an Art Fag record. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I felt like there just wasn't enough information for this particular person. And that's personal preference, but that's also an example of like thousands of people that out there exist that, you know, you could really be into this one particular musician's art.
Absolutely.
Not everyone's going to know it because there's just so much of it, right?
Well, and this is it. One of my favorite things to do is to hit the thrift stores and buy CDs. I'm dedicated to this. My wife has picked up on this, and she's really good. She pulled home, and this is just one example out of a million. She brought me home a chamber jazz CD of music written by a composer in reference to 12 paintings. And this is all done in the Faroe Islands, if you can believe this. Cool. Recorded and done in the Faroe Islands by a band whose name I cannot pronounce, YGG something. Yeah. And, you know, there it is. And it's really good. It sounds like ECM jazz. And it's completely obscure. I mean, just as obscure,
well, you know. Most people that are listening to this are not going to know what ECM jazz is either.
Oh,
you don't know. You don't know that.
Everybody knows who ECM
is. True. Not everybody knows what ECM
Anybody
is.
Who listens to jazz does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're great. I love seeing you guys so much. I have been 100%. This has been so wonderful just sitting here and hearing these chats and hearing these stories.
Well, it's good to be here.
My God. No, I mean it a lot. Like it's really wonderful. It makes me, it teleports me back to a different moment in time, let's be honest. And it makes me feel really awesome. So thank you both for just doing that.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Oh, great.
I'd like to do a month-long post-mortem, but there you go. We shall move onward and upward, all of us.
Yes, of course.
And
or downward and.
No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm gonna keep on. No, I'm moving. Oh, look at the clouds! Wow. Yeah, that's where I'm going. The clouds.
That's a good direction to go. You know, I think
I just planted my garlic, so yeah.
I've got to do that this weekend.
Into the earth, go out into the woods.
That's
Did you what's the purple colored one? There's a purple variety. Did you plant some of that one?
Oh, like well, it's Russian garlic, so no.
No. Don't talk Russians. Yeah. Never talk about Russians to an Estonian. Bad idea.
I get it. I'm a mixed person myself, and I have Norwegian and Jewish and Polish and Lithuanian and
I just found out I'm 3% Jewish. I'm so happy.
You're 3% Jewish? Hey, congratulations.
Well, according to ancestry.dna, which could be completely full of lies, but anyway, yeah.
Well, my great grandfather was straight from Oslo, and so I know that much. And then my grandmother, she was Jewish, but my great grandmother. Anyway, that we're not going to get into heritage tests and cultural backgrounds. That would be a whole nother show, although it would be probably a lot of fun. But respect, no Russian garlic in this situation here. But I really, I really have enjoyed just talking with you guys a lot. I'm not meaning to chop anything off because there's maybe one other thing I'd love to get you guys to comment on. And yeah, I just have to say as a personal aside, just hearing your guys' stories about Logan's, hearing your experiences and the way you see the future post as it not being an entirely negative thing, your openness to adaptability and innovation is really wonderful. I can't thank you enough. And I think a lot of people in general will appreciate that who are on a creative bend themselves.
I think it needs to be stressed that this is not the end of the world.
No, it's not.
It might be for us. We might die from this.
Don't say that.
The end of the world for everybody else.
Don't say that. No.
Well,
everybody dies.
We gotta hang on to our houses and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Because there's
people got to take care of priorities. For instance,
places to live.
My priority with COVID right now is surviving the damn thing.
Yeah.
But while I'm doing that, I'm going to stay busy. Yeah. And I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to quake in the corner, I'm going to die in my boots. So
I had lots of opportunity to die, and
we both have. It's
you know,
really boring. Take our word for it. It's not. Those of you who are into the gothy death cult kind of thing, it's really dull. Okay, not a lot happens. So you want to stay on this side of the dirt for as long as you can, I think. Yeah, that's my advice.
That's solid advice. I can honestly say COVID has helped me. I have my, I think, when was that? I think I had you guys on the show. Was that for the man? Was that? I remember. No, you guys came and played on my show. I don't remember.
a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Was that for
Was that in the studio?
Yeah, that was at CFUV.
Yeah, CFUV, yeah.
That was in the closet.
Yes,
Right.
the closet. Exactly. I call it the pocket hole, the closet, whatever other people call it. Anyway, I remember we were there and we were chatting a bit about, health and stuff. And it turned out we both had the same arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. And yeah, so one thing that I found, COVID has actually improved my arthritis. I kid you not. I can comfortably move around my house. I don't have to use my cane nearly as much as I used to. And it has been great. So just being able to be not running here and there all the time, that's what I mean by COVID has improved my health. I don't mean like catching COVID made my arthritis.
Right.
That'd be insane. So, but you know what I mean? But this new lifestyle associated with COVID that would encourage innovation and alternative ways of doing things has been beneficial to me. So I think that in a sense, there's a creative opportunity there too. No, it is very hopeful, and I feel really good about having a very candid and honest story and perspective about Logan's based on your friendship, based on your connection to the space, based on essentially you two really being a part of the pottery shaping of the place as time has gone on for people to hear and just to reminisce themselves. Earlier, you guys did a perfect shout out to longtime Logan's patrons when you cracked the beer. So I don't think we necessarily need to do that again, but I'll probably collect a few more names from you later and include that. But I think one of the things that we didn't really cover, perhaps we did a little bit. I was wondering, what were your first immediate reactions when you did hear that Logan's was going to be like, this was it? Scott, you mentioned earlier that you anticipated it way back in March. Michael, you were saying, hey, I'm hoping that's just going to change in time for summer. But when it finally, when the nail really was sunken into the coffin, first reactions, first thoughts.
Well, I mean, like I say, I knew that unless COVID was over, I figured COVID would be done and dealt with by Labor Day. And I thought if that was in fact the case, Logan's would survive. However, that did not turn out to be the case. And I knew in my bones that this was it. So it was really just a confirmation. I must give a shout out to Denise Logan she did do a conference sort of Zoom call with all of the sort of staff and at least as many people as she could get a hold of to break the news to us before it was made public. That was very nice of her. But it was not a surprise to me.
My first reaction was, well, this sucks. That was my first reaction. I was bracing myself for it. I was holding out,
Well, you were more hopeful than I was.
Well, I was like, they own the space, so I think it gave us a better chance than most places. So I was hopeful in that regard. But my first reaction to hearing it was over was like,
yeah,
right? That sucks.
I mean, the finality of it
that's out. It's out of our reality now, right? It's done. And it still kind of hits me that it's okay, well, that's just not a thing. It's not, that was it. At the same time, I think it is like, I knew that we were, a special thing's gone, right? things aren't special if they last forever either, right?
Well, familiarity breeds contempt.
Right.
And I think that
there's lots of that.
There's lots of that. I think there was a bit of that even at Logan's. Just because 20 years is a long time for a nightclub to exist. A lot of nightclubs don't last 5 years.
I mean, sort of being the CBGB of, you know, the West, Vancouver Island, you know, the West Coast here. And like, it was, it was just kind of a miracle we ever existed to begin with. Well, honestly, it was just again, like, in the circumstances, it just can't replicate the same way now. It's just, there's no way. Victoria is a different city.
Yeah.
Just and it's a different time.
Different time, different place.
And, you know, the people that owned it and ran it at the end, they weren't into the music scene, and they weren't really all that interested in running a bar. So, I mean, it was not their passion. After carrying a dead bar for almost a year, they said, well, we just can't sustain
like this. I said, they had the ship. We were the pirates running it.
Yeah.
It was on fire. It was sinking. We had threats over the years for, you know, we were always threatened. And there was always a sense that at some point we're going to have to jump ship and get into those lifeboats, right? And it's happened. We didn't see it this way. You know, but like, you know, who knew? COVID took out Logan.
I always knew that I would be very suddenly unemployed. I wouldn't have any chance to, you know, save up some money or something. And I don't know why I thought that, but it turned out to be completely true.
Well, the struggle was like, I have weekly meetings. Every week I'd go in and we'd face whatever the numbers and look at what shows are doing. We broke down the math. We did the math every week, right? So it was, there was always something. I was always like, okay, and it was always, every week it was like, we talk about how do we improve things, right? I mean, that can only go on for so long. Yeah. So. Yeah.
True. It's true.
But again, if COVID didn't happen, we'd still be happening.
Oh yeah, we'd be rocking along like nobody's business.
Of course. I think that Logan's, if anything, in Victoria would be expected to live through any plague. I personally would imagine Logan's, you know, just being totally Teflon, you know, to the plague, to be perfectly honest. Like, I feel like so much of the essence and everything would be. Of course, not everything is. Most aren't. It's impossible. But I think that in the end, though, what does live on is the absolute soul and the whole overall concept of Logan's. You know, like
the spirit of it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah. The spirit of it will live on and reincarnate somewhere else
until the sun goes supernova. And,
then we all die.
Yeah, and
as long as we don't have melancholia happen, then we're fine.
Right?
Yeah, then we're fine. But but in that sense, as you both have demonstrated very obviously with your continued creation on your own, I think that also other people associated with Logan's have continued to create in their own way as well. It does live on in a philosophical sense. There's a sort of credo that Logan exuded that continues.
Well, there's all those people that had been to Logan's over the years. It has meant enough to them where they want to have their wakes and their wedding receptions and all that there, that you know, that doesn't go nowhere. I mean, that's people carrying it out. It has meant something to them.
Yeah, people
and
doing
in that
way,
we've had an impact that is going to be felt through, you know, the people that have had kids, and you know, people may not know where that idea or that feeling came from, like, you know, when they're going down, but it's like, you know, how many people have met and had babies and had families from Logan's? Or
we both met our spouses at Logan's, do we not?
Yeah, we did.
And I've lost count of how many wedding receptions we've done there.
Yeah,
and we've done the odd wake there. We've done several wakes there. So it really was a social hub.
It doesn't go in. It doesn't just, you know, it lives on in people, right? Like, and their experiences, all that. Like everything and anything, right?
That's, in the end, that land where Logan sits, that space that Logan's, created or was basically the inventor of, is going to always exude a lot of positive energy in the long run, in my opinion. It's going to be a space where, if people are going to say there's energetic activity in the future when we're all dead, and I don't know, there's flying cars and people that are extreme millennials with silver outfits, they'll say, gee, this environment feels real nice, doesn't it? And that's because it will be this environment. There's a lot of positive experiences and bonds that were formed in that space, and that can't just be gone with the space being closed, because all those bonds have been formed and those people are carrying on, and that whole perspective is still there. So
I'll tell you one thing, when they tear that building down, if it's in my lifetime, I'm going to take a big chunk of it and stick it in my backyard.
Do it. Let me know when they're doing it. I want a piece.
That'll be my Logan's memorial.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. I can't thank you both for chatting with me. It's been great.
No, it's our pleasure.
It's been great chatting with you. It's been great on a more, personal level for myself, just, by my own admiration of both of you and my own interactions I've had in the past. It's been wonderful for that reason, but it's also just been, God, so nice to communicate, about Logan's and what, historical significance has been for you, for so many people in the community, right? So thank you.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this particular here is that there's a lot of people that we know from Logan's that we're going to have trouble seeing them again and interacting with them again. So this is a nice way to interact with you. And like I say, one of the reasons I did my video thing was that a lot of my friends said, it's just like hanging out with you talking music. And I went, yes, that's what I want.
Logan's Pub, the Tavern of the Damned, will forever be missed, but immortalized in our hearts and memories. I want to thank Mihkel Kaup and Scott Henderson for chatting with me back in November. It was a real blast. And I can say, revisiting all of our chats and our topics and the footage for the interview today, it was really quite delightful. And I will definitely miss Logan's. And as Scott said, we should all be real and know that Logan's isn't going to be happening after COVID. It's done now. And if you got to have the chance to go and be a patron of or work or be a part of the Logan's community, have fun and remember that. And maybe work towards creating something similar in the future. I also like to add, if you are ever in doubt in the future after COVID about recording your favorite band in your favorite venue and posting it on the internet and sharing it, do not think twice about it. Just do it. Because it is so worthwhile to be able to see these things well into the future. Doesn't matter what people say and complain, oh, you're using your phone at this show. They'll thank you later. Trust me. I certainly was grateful to be able to see all the footage that I got to when making this interview. I want to remind you to go over to Zip Gun's YouTube channel and go and follow him and subscribe and check out all of his videos that he posts. ZIPPGUNN. And of course, if you haven't already become familiar with High Arctic, please acquaint yourself. Head to their Bandcamp. Tune in every Wednesday for the Fiji Mermaid, 3 until 5 p.m., only on CFUV 101.9 FM. Broadcasting from the traditional Coast Salish territories of the Songhees and Wasanish-speaking peoples.
Hey, is it better if my camera's on its side?
Let's try it. Let's flip it.
I'm just wondering. I don't know if that makes a difference, but
let's see if it. Oh, it does show it. Oh, good. Oh, it just shut off. That's terrible. Why did it do that? No.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, but the audio.
How do I get? Okay, I can see you. Your microphone is unmuted.
Yeah.
Your microphone is unmuted. Your video is stopped. So now it says leave. I don't want to leave the meeting. It says leave meeting.
So just click outside of that box that says leave meeting or click cancel. What I think might have happened is when you rotated your camera, you might have the button. Cancel.
Okay, well then I just pushed something. And
that's exactly it. Yeah.
I don't know how now it says done speaking. What happened? Oh, there we go. Okay,
you're on. Now if you gently
you're there? We're there? There we go.
Yes, it works. This is beautiful. Yay! Yay!
It's really
better.
This is perfect. I like it. I like it a lot.
You get the wider view. We're just gonna step out for just like 2 seconds because we're gonna smoke some weed.
We need to ingest some controlled substances, like coffee.
Yeah, like coffee.
Okay, I love you both. Yeah, you do it. It's all good.
Come with us. You can actually come with us. So.
Yeah, that's fine. God. Oh, it's so
there you go.
Oh wow. I'm glad to see
Jesus.
Is it as windy for you guys out there as it is out here in Gordon Head?
Oh yeah.
It's pretty windy.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
The power's still on, so that's good.
Yeah, the power used to always shut off over here. Now it's a bit more steady after Hydro came in and played with all the tubes. I don't know what they did, but because all the cords are in the air.
All of Jordan River now.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's a 20-kilometer wind.
It's a tube, yeah, and they have all the.
Of course, under.
It makes sense. Always is surprising when you think about it. And then if you're going to be, very literal, in some neighborhoods, the tube cords are in the air. So it's like, well, they're in the air. How does fixing the tube fix the air cords? But
well, sadly, they didn't discover underground wiring out here until too late.
We've got it where we are. It's all underground, but we're one of the last places to lose power. But we still lose power because all the transformers, all that stuff, it's still hanging in the air, and there's nothing but trees around.
And
trees and power lines are a really lousy thing.
The trees are so pretty, and yet you want light at night. How do you power it? It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, are you guys on the same property, or are you guys just neighbors, like really close neighbors?
We're 5 minutes.
He's on the other side of the river.
That's great. Oh,
I'm in the rainforest.
Well, we're actually technically closer to the rainforest.
Well, I'm in the rainforest.
It's not really rainforest here yet, so the rainforest starts one to technically speaking.
I got trees that are big enough to be in rainforest.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. That's the great part of like moving out to Sooke and Metchosin. You don't have to be like right where all the urban screaming is, and like, I don't know.
Well, there's plenty of screaming here though.
Yeah, I bet.
You know what's funny? What? You know what's funny? I used to live at the top of the hill from Logan's where the Cridge Center is.
Oh wow.
And at any point in time,
that's where Paula used to live.
At any point in time, you could hear a siren.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
True.
You know what? Yes, I hear more sirens out here.
No way, really?
Almost than I do here. Oh, it's nuts.
Wow.
Well, because it's so quiet.
God, it was a few years ago. I remember hearing, I went, I don't know, some kind of hike. It doesn't matter. Anyway, and there was shooting. There was just totally just random shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Logging road. You're asking for it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's shooting.
There was a shooting right outside my recording studio.
Oh, wow.
Here in
Sooke.
Sooke.
Did you get that snippet and incorporate it?
No, we sadly.
There was a boat set on fire right outside.
There's a boat set. There's a pretty good amount of craziness in Soup. A lot of people in Soup have a lot of guns.
Yeah.
And they do
and bear bangers. There's bear bangers, right? So you hear those go off too.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's a different world. Yeah. Oh God. Well,
it is,
different place.
Same world, but different place, I guess. Yeah.
Things haven't changed much in Soup. There's still,
Oh, they've changed a lot.
Well, but the basic, like the original Soukites are still, a lot of them are here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're acting the same as they always have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's just that the interlopers such as ourselves have sort of upset their apple cart. So
would you say there's a distinct, but is there a distinct difference between the Soukers and the Langforders? Am I saying that even correctly? The
Langforders?
Yes. Absolutely.
The Langforders are just white trash.
Right.
The Soukers are insane white trash.
Well, and just very, it's weird. Souk is weird because you have like, all the newer people that have come in, right? And they're driving Teslas and whatever, like, like our boys' friends with a family down on Whiff and Spit, they have like $1 million house. They drive a Tesla. They moved here to get away from U.S. politics. They own a farm up in Shirley, and they package meat and put it all out there, and get your chicken. It's good stuff they're doing, but it's very it's rich hip. There's a lot of rich hipsters. Yeah. And then there's it's a pretty big mix, really. But
I guess I'm a poor hipster.
I mean, even when this, when I first came to Souk, the first time I ever came here was like 91. And there wasn't a bus that came out here. No buses. There was a grocery store. I mean, there wasn't, it's changed when you think about it as far as that goes. But there's all these new developments, and it's just like where
probably doubled in size since then.
It's easily doubled in size.
That's 13,000 people now.
So. Back then it was like hippies and fishermen and loggers, and that was pretty much it. Yeah. And now the crowd is definitely a lot more diverse.
Now it's a bedroom to me.
Well, who can afford to live in Victoria?
Exactly.
That's the thing. Everyone relocates.
Langford is expensive too, right? And Souk is not cheap.
Well, because you get the nice land, and there's this idea of you being removed, so you get to do your own thing, run.
Well, my house, I've got a newer house, but I don't have a lot of land. And it's my place is like $600,000,
that's pretty good, but that's standard these days.
I was lucky to get this place.
You guys got a good deal on this place.
Well, we got in just before everything really went up.
Yeah.
And yet I live on an acre of old growth. Yeah. In a hippie cabin that's really cool.
Well, it's an older house. It's
it's really funky.
It's a really cool arts and crafts kind of house.
Nice.
But it was affordable. Yep. And we got it for, it was at least 150 grand cheaper than anything.
Oh my God. Anything that is just that.
So we got in. Yeah. We got in there, and we can live there comfortably without a lot of strain. Yeah. Which is what you want.
Yeah. That's nice. That's really nice.
Well, that was why I got this place, was because at the time when we bought this, I was in, heart failure.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk really. So we got a flat area close to the schools. The kids can walk to school, all that, right? An ambulance can come in and get me,
That's a reality. That was thinking real.
But my style, as far as what I would actually go for at full health, is like a long driveway that, you're gonna, really question what you're gonna find at the end of the driveway, right?
Yeah. When they came to get me at the ambulance, I was in my bedroom, which is in a loft.
Yeah.
And you haven't lived until you've tried to get somebody out of this bedroom.
Well, you've got all these quirks.
Stairs.
It's quirky, right?
Yeah. I have a turret.
You have a turret?
Yeah.
Stairs.
You do.
The high point of the house is the turret, and it's the man cave. and it's where all the CDs live. 10,000 CDs, 8x8 turret, and
That's where your videos are, aren't they? Because I saw your.
Right.
That's right on. Awesome. It's in a turret. Look at that.
Yeah.
You don't have Tourette's in the turret, of course. Bad joke. Bad joke.
No Tourette's in the turret?
Like
Nothing but Tourette's in the turret.
Why not? Everything's allowed. There are no rules in the turret. So
Tourette's in the turret.
Oh my God. I'm so glad to see you two are doing fine.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
You know, is full of piss.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We've both been very suddenly retired.
Yeah.
And, in my case, it took 10 minutes. And once that had happened, I knew Logan's was done. This is back in March. Right. So the recent announcement was more of just a formality, really.
Right.
I was always kind of hoping that, that we'd be open by summer, as the reality, it's set in. It was just like, I was like, okay, well, if we can get open by summer or by September, because September is always like busy, right? It's when all the students come back, they have their student loans.
Student loans.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go spend it.
September and January.
That was.
I wish I could look at their books, because the second weekend of September was always nuts. Like we would do, because the students were just loans as fast as they could, losing their minds. It was great.
It was also rookie time though. Like it's like when you're dealing with people that are just learning to drink in bars. It's
Yes, there was that downside.
But yeah, they spend the money.
Yeah, nothing like a gel gig on the second weekend of September to kind of make you go, okay, why am I here again? Nothing against the guys in gel, but the people who come to see
I don't know if anybody knows who gel are anymore.
Oh, there's still one of their stickers at the payphone at the mall.
I don't doubt the stickers. I mean, I'm sure that the stickers are around.
They're everywhere.
And people see them and they just think it's, like,
what the heck is gel?
It's for my hair or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Get together.
Okay. I really appreciate.
Anyway, we're keeping.
No, you're not keeping me at all. No, I'm fine.
Whoa.
I've got time. I'm cool. I've had reading break this week, which has been great for me.
No,
It's been nuts. And finally today, I don't have to work with